The straw smelled of dust and old rain. Corinne Vance lay in it with both hands flat against a crate so the crate would not shift. Under the canvas the dark was complete. She had watched the freight go into the wagon that afternoon from the kitchen window of the hotel. Barrels of flour, kegs of nails, sacks of green coffee, and at the tail, 6 long crates packed in straw that 2 men carried the way a person carries a sleeping child. She had marked where the crates went. She had marked the gap behind them. 2 hours past midnight, she crossed the yard in her stocking feet, with her boots under one arm, climbed the wheel, and went in through the pucker of the canvas head first. She had not made a sound since. Once a lantern swung past outside and threw a seam of yellow along the wagon bow. She held her breath until it went. She had learned to hold her breath in that house. 4 years of it. A person can learn almost anything in 4 years if the other road is worse. Her name had been on a paper since she was 19. That was the whole of it. Her father died in Missouri owing money to men who do not forget, and a hotel keeper named Rufus Pike bought the debt and paid her passage west and had a bond drawn up in Cimarron by a lawyer who never once looked at her face. Labor against debt. So much a month set against so much owed. She signed it because the winter standing behind her was worse than signing. 4 years. And the debt never went down. It went up. Board was charged against it. A dress she never asked for was charged against it. A broken plate was charged against it twice. And in September, Rufus Pike came into the kitchen while she was seating chiles and told her the arrangement had gone on long enough that they would be married before the first snow, and that after that there would be no more talk of paper at all. He said it the way a man says he has decided to paint a fence. That night she began counting what she owned. 2 dresses. A comb with 3 teeth gone. $11 in coins sewn into a hem. A tin of tea she had bought with her own money and hidden behind the flour bin, and the numbers which she had carried in her head every month for 4 years because nobody would let her keep them anywhere else. The wagon moved before daylight. She felt the mules come into the traces, felt the whole heavy body of it lean and take up and roll, and she lay in the straw with her heart going hard, and let herself think, for the first time, the word north. By the time the light came gray through the canvas, she had counted 6 miles by the sound of the wheels. At the second ford, the wagon stopped. She heard boots come down. She heard water. She heard a low, steady voice talking to the near mule about the mud and about how there was no call for opinions this early. Then the canvas at the tail went back, and the morning came in, and a man was standing there with one hand on the end gate, looking straight at her. He was maybe 40. Sun cut into the corners of his eyes, a brown beard going gray along the jaw. He did not shout. He did not reach for her. He looked at her the way a man looks at a load that is shifted, taking in the whole of the problem before he says anything about it. Corinne got herself up onto one elbow. Straw fell off her shoulder. Then she said it, low, the way she had practiced it in the dark for 2 nights, because she had one thing to ask and no time to say it twice. Pretend I am your wife until we pass the border. The mules moved in the traces. Water went over the stones. The man did not answer. He set his hand on the crate nearest her and pressed down on it, checking the pack, and his voice when it came was flat and unhurried. You are lying on $400 of window glass. I know what it is. I did not break any of it. He looked at her hands then. They were pressed flat on the crate lid, and they had been pressed flat on the crate lid for 6 miles. He went away and came back with a canteen and put it into her hands. She drank more than she meant to. Come out of there. I cannot be seen on the road. You will be seen worse if a wheel goes and the load comes down on you. Come out. She came out. Her legs did not hold well, and she caught the sideboard and stood there in the wet grass at the edge of the ford with her boots in her hand. 23 years old, with straw in her hair and $11 in her hem, waiting to be told to walk back. The man closed the end gate. He looked at the road behind them, a long time, the way a man reads a road. He put out his hand the way a man does to a freight clerk. Josiah Teague. She took it. Corinne Vance. Get up on the seat, Mrs. Vance. Nobody rides in my wagon like cargo. That was all. He did not ask what she was running from. He did not say yes to the thing she had whispered, and he did not say no to it either. He put her up on the seat and climbed after her and took the lines, and the wagon came out of the ford and turned its nose north again, and the sun came up over the mesa on their right hand and made the ruts run gold. She sat with her hands in her lap and did not cry, because she had made a rule about that a long time back. They made 12 miles that first day, and it felt like a country. She learned the shape of him by evening. He talked to his mules more than he talked to her, and he talked to them like partners rather than animals. He ate standing up. He greased a hub before he ate at all. He carried a rifle in the box, but he carried it the way a man carries a shovel, as a tool he hoped not to need. She learned the freight too. He hauled for a line out of Cimarron, north over the pass to Trinidad and back, flour and hardware and coffee going up, hides and wool coming down. And the 6 crates. She asked about them at the second camp because she had lain on them and felt she was owed a name for the thing. Window glass. 6 panes. For a store? He put a stick into the fire and left it there until it took. For a house. He did not say more that night, and she did not push. She had spent 4 years learning when a door was only leaning shut and when it was latched. What she did instead was work. The second morning she had coffee going before he was up, and she had it strong, the way a man wants it who has been on a road since dark. The third morning she looked at the near mule, the one with the pale muzzle, and told him the collar was riding wrong on the off shoulder and would gall it by noon. He went and looked. She was right. He shifted the pad and said nothing about it, but that evening he handed her the grease can without being asked, which was a kind of sentence. The fourth day she watched him load out of a way station and told him the sacks were wrong end to. He asked her what she meant. She told him the weight ought to ride forward of the axle, and that the coffee was stacked 3 back of where it wanted to be, and that with the pass coming he would feel it in the brake. He stood there with his hands on his hips and looked at the load a while, and then took 20 minutes and restacked it, and after that the wagon went down the long grade at Chico with the brake barely warm. He looked at her a while over the top of the load. You have hauled before. I have loaded before. 4 years of wagons in and out of a hotel yard. Somebody had to count it. Somebody had to count it. That was the whole of her, if a person cared to look. She had counted every crate that came into that yard, and every egg that went out of it, and every dollar in the till on a Saturday night, and Rufus Pike had never once written her name in the book beside a single figure of it. On the 5th night the wind came round from the north with a cold edge in it, and they made camp under a cut bank and ate beans, and she asked him plainly, because she was tired of being a woman who owed an explanation. Do you want to know what I ran from? He turned his cup in his hands. I want to know what is going to come up that road behind us. So she told it. All of it, in order, in the flat voice she used for figures. The debt her father left. The bond signed at 19. The 4 years. The charges added against the debt each month. The night in September and the chiles and the fence he had decided to paint. Then she told him the numbers, because the numbers were the true part. $212 owed at the start, $6 a month allowed against it, 4 years and 1 month, which is 49 months. $294 of labor set against $212 of debt. Josiah Teague sat very still. I cleared it 2 years ago. In the summer. I have known the month and the week of it for 2 years. And every time I said so, he showed me the book with his own hand in it and told me a woman cannot read a bond. The fire moved. Somewhere out in the dark a mule shifted. Can you prove any of it? I can say it. I have said it. Nobody would hear it. He looked at her across the fire, and it was the first time he had looked at her straight on since the ford. I hear it. 2 words, and they went through her like heat through a chimney. She had to look away into the dark until her face was hers again. After a while he told her about the glass, since they were trading true things. He had come out in '74 and taken up land on the Purgatoire, north of the line, in a fold of the hills where there was water. He had married a woman named Ulma out of Las Animas. He had built the house himself, 1 room done and a 2nd room framed. And he had bought 6 panes of window glass in Trinidad and hauled them home wrapped in straw because Ulma had said that a house without a real window is only a shed with ambitions. He had not cut the openings yet when the fever came through in '79. He kept the land. He did not sleep in the house. He went back to freighting because a wagon does not sit still and ask you questions. And the glass had ridden with him from Cimarron to Trinidad and back for 2 years because he could not sell it and he could not put it in a wall. Corinne did not say she was sorry. She had been given a great deal of sorry in her life and had found it to be mostly a thing people said to be finished with a subject. What she said was, "They will still fit." He looked at the fire, and something in his shoulders came down a ½ inch. They will still fit. Willow Springs was a station with a corral and a well and a low adobe with a kitchen in it, and they came into it at noon on the 6th day, with the pass standing blue and enormous ahead of them. He handed her down off the wheel in front of the station keeper and used the word for the first time. "My wife will want the shade." It came out of him easy, which surprised them both. The station keeper touched his hat and thought nothing of it, and Corinne went into the kitchen with her heart going and sat in the shade and discovered that she was shaking, not from fear, but from the plain shock of being spoken for. The station keeper wife was a broad woman named Ida Beck, and her mother Nadine worked the stove, 70 years old and deaf in one ear and quick as a bird. They put a plate in front of Corinne without asking anything about her, which is the best manners there are. She had been there an hour when the dogs went off in the yard. Ida Beck went to the door and came back with her mouth set flat and said 1 word. "Riders." Corinne stood up so fast the bench went over. "There is a room behind the flower, and there is a gap in the wall where the plaster went." Ida Beck took her by the arm and put her in it and pulled the door to. Through the gap she could see most of the kitchen and a slice of the yard beyond. She saw the gray horse first, and then she saw him get down off it. Rufus Pike was a heavy man who dressed carefully. He came into that kitchen with his hat still on, and behind him came a lean man with a badge pinned crooked, a territorial deputy named Ansel Crow, whom she had served supper to 100 times. Pike put a printed bill down on the table and smoothed it with 2 fingers. A woman traveling alone. Dark hair, 23. She has taken property that does not belong to her, and she is bound under a lawful bond of labor in the county of Colfax. Ida Beck looked at the bill and said she had not seen any such woman. Pike smiled at that and asked old Nadine the same question, loud into the deaf ear, and Nadine wiped her hands on her apron and said the same. Then he did the thing that Corinne would carry the rest of her life. He picked up the pan of bread that was cooling on the table and turned it over onto the floor. Then he took the old woman by the wrist, the hand she cooked with, and he twisted it until she went up on her toes and made a sound, and he held her there and asked her again, in a pleasant voice, whether she had seen the woman. Nadine Beck gave him nothing. He let go. He straightened his cuff. He said something about the price of loyalty and went out into the yard. And Ansel Crow picked the bill up off the table and left it on the sill and followed him. They rode north. Corinne came out of that room and got down on the floor and picked up the bread, every piece, and Ida Beck stood over her with her arms folded and shook. Nadine sat on the bench holding her wrist in her lap. Corinne got up off the floor with the bread gathered in her apron. "I will go back. I will go back right now, and this ends. You will not." The voice of the old woman was steady even if the hand in her lap was not. "I have had a man take my wrist before. Going back never once fixed it." Josiah Teague came in from the corral then and looked at the bread on the floor and the old woman on the bench and the bill on the sill, and his face did a thing Corinne had not seen it do. He read the bill twice. Then he folded it into his coat. "He is ahead of us now." "Yes, then there is no road. There is the toll road over the pass, and there is no other way to take a loaded wagon north out of this territory. He will be sitting at the gate." He went out and put the mules to. The storm came up the second night on the grade, early for October. A wet snow that came in sideways and froze on everything it touched. By dark the road had gone from mud to glass. Josiah walked at the heads of the mules with the lines in one hand and a lantern in the other, and the wagon came behind him, one wheel turn at a time. Corinne stood on the brake. At the switchback above the creek the offside wheels found ice, and the whole load went over 3 inches and stopped, and the near mule screamed and went down on a knee. Josiah got the mule up. He came back through the snow, and his beard was white, and his hands were split open across the knuckles from the wet lines, and he could barely close them. We chained the wheel. He got out. You cannot hold a chain with those hands. She did it herself. She had watched him rough lock a wheel on the Chico grade, and she remembered it exactly, because remembering exactly was the only wealth she had ever been allowed. She got down in the snow and ran the chain through the spokes and around the felloe and made it fast. And then she went up and took the lines and told him to walk the heads and watch the outside stakes, because the stakes were still visible and the road was not. They went down the last mile that way. Him at the heads, half blind, following the stakes. Her on the seat with her arms shaking, feeling for the road through the mules. At the bottom she got him into the lee of the wagon and got the fire going with the pitch splinters he kept in a can, and she put his hands in water that was only barely warm and then warmer. The way you do, not hot, never hot. And he sat with his head back against the wheel and let her. It was a long time before he could talk. "You could have left me on that grade and run for the line on a mule." "I could have." "Why did you not?" "Because you did not put me out at the ford." The fire cracked. His hands came back to him slowly and hurt the way they are supposed to hurt when they come back. "Corinne," she waited. "If we get past that gate tomorrow, there is nothing making you stop. Trinidad is a town. There is work in it. A woman who can count the way you count will not starve in Trinidad." "I know. I am telling you that so you know it. I am not going to be one more man who has you standing somewhere with no other road." She sat with that a while. The snow came down soft now, the mean part of it gone out of the sky. "Say it in the morning. Whatever you are going to say it after." The toll gate stood at the top of the pass in a cold blue morning. A pole across the road, a stone house, a corral, and behind all of it the long notch in the rock where the road went over and down into Colorado. The line ran through that notch. On one side of it, a paper written in Colfax County was law. On the other side of it, a paper written in Colfax County was a piece of paper that would need a Colorado officer to honor it and a Colorado judge to look at it first. 900 feet of frozen road. Rufus Pike was standing at the pole in a good coat, with Ansel Crow beside him and the gray horse tied, and there were 14 or 15 people in that yard because a storm night stacks up travelers the way a dam stacks up water. 2 freight outfits. A family in a spring wagon, the toll keeper, a narrow man named Perry Dow, and the wife of Perry Dow, who kept the toll book on a shelf by the door with a pen in it. Josiah Teague brought the wagon up at a walk and stopped it 8 feet short of the pole and set the brake and did not get down. Rufus Pike walked to the wheel and looked up at Corinne and smiled at her with real warmth, which was the worst of it. "You have caused a great deal of trouble." Then he turned that smile up at Josiah. "You are the Teague that hauls for the Cimarron line." "I hold paper in that line. I hold a third of it. Hand her down and there is $200 in it for you and your contract stand. Drive on with her and you will not load a sack out of Colfax County again as long as I am living." The yard got quiet. Corinne looked straight ahead at the notch in the rock, 900 feet away, and understood exactly what she was costing him. 2 years of hauling. The only trade he had. All of it against a woman he had known 8 days. Josiah Teague wrapped the lines and set them down on the seat, which is a thing a freighter does when he intends to be a while. Ansel Crow put his thumbs in his belt. "I have a writ here for one Corinne Vance, bound under lawful bond." "Is that woman Corinne Vance?" "That woman is my wife." He said it flat and loud into the whole yard without one moment of hesitation in it, and Corinne felt it go through her chest like a nail. Pike laughed once, short. "She is nothing of the kind. She was in my kitchen a week ago. I did not ask for the history of it. I said what she is. Prove it." Josiah Teague looked down at him a moment. "You first." The whole yard turned. Perry Dow, who ran a toll road and had therefore spent his life watching men argue about what was owed, folded his arms. "Deputy, you have ridden 2 days and a night and worn out a horse. You have a writ. Read it out here in front of these people. If it is good, I will not lay a hand on you, and she will go down that road with you. Read it out." Ansel Crow looked at Pike. That look told the yard a good deal. Perry Dow shifted his arms. "Read it." So he read it. A bond of labor entered in Colfax County. $212 principal, $6 a month credited against it, signed with a mark and a name in the spring of '77. And then Corinne Vance, who had not been permitted to say a number out loud in 4 years, stood up on the footboard of that wagon so that every soul in the yard could see her. $6 a month. Say back to me how many months I was in that kitchen. Nobody answered. So she gave it to them herself. 49 months. From the spring of '77 to this October. $6 against 49 months is $294. The debt was $212. It cleared in July of '79, and I have known the week of it for 2 years, and every time I said so I was told a woman cannot read a bond. She looked at Perry Dow and at the wife of Perry Dow standing in the doorway with the toll book under her arm, because those 2 people had been adding figures at a gate for 11 years. Do it yourself. It is not hard arithmetic. It is only arithmetic nobody wanted done. The wife of Perry Dow set the toll book on the water barrel and took the pen and did it right there, out loud, while 15 people watched, and when she came to the bottom of it, she looked up and said one word. Cleared. Rufus Pike said that there were charges: board, breakage, a dress. Corinne named the dress. She named the plate that was charged twice. She named the month and the amount and the page of the book it was written on, from memory, because for 4 years the book had been the only thing in that house she was ever allowed near, and she had read every line of it while she cleaned around it. Ansel Crow rolled his writ up slowly, the way a man does when he has decided he would rather be somewhere else. He looked around that yard at 14 witnesses and a toll keeper with a pen and a settled debt. "I am not serving this." Pike turned on him. "You are a paid man." "I am a paid man in Colfax County, and this is the top of the pass, and there is not one thing in this writ worth what it would cost me to drag her down that road in front of these people." He put it in his coat. Go home. Rufus Pike, stood in the middle of that yard in his good coat, and for one moment Corinne saw him understand that everyone was looking at him and that not one of them was going to move. Then he went and got the gray horse, and he rode south, and that was all there ever was of him. Perry Dow lifted the pole himself. "Toll is $1.75 for a loaded wagon. Take it slow off the top. There is ice in the shade." Josiah Teague paid him. He took the lines back up, and the wagon went through the notch in the rock at a walk and out the north side of it and down into Colorado. He drove a quarter-mile past the line before he stopped in a wide place where the road came out of the trees and the whole country opened up below them, brown and enormous and going blue at the edges. He set the brake. Then he took his hat off, which he had not done once in 8 days, and turned on the seat to face her. "That is the border. I have said the last thing I am going to say for the sake of a gate." Corinne folded her hands to keep them still. "So the pretending is done. It is done. All right." He turned the hat around by the brim. "Once, I am no kind of prize. I am 41. I have a house with 2 openings in the wall and no windows in them and a woman buried on the ridge above it that I loved very much. I have just lost my contracts, and I will be hauling for the Trinidad line at less money by Christmas." She waited, and the waiting hurt. "But there is nothing making you stop, and I want it that way. I want you to have a road. So here is what I am asking, and you can say no to it standing on your own ground, and it will not cost you one thing. Not a roof, not a ride, not $1. He looked out at the country, and then back at her. "Will you marry me, not to get past anything, not for shelter? Because I have watched you for 8 days, and I do not want to load a wagon again without you counting it." Corinne Vance sat on the seat of a freight wagon with the whole of Colorado in front of her and discovered that she did not know how to be asked. Nobody had ever asked her anything. She had been bought, bonded, told, and assigned. In 23 years, not once asked. "Say it again." He said it again. Yes, they were married in Trinidad in the 2nd week of October by a justice with a cold, and the wife of Perry Dow came down off the pass to stand as a witness, which Corinne had not expected and did not entirely get through with a dry face. The town took to her faster than it took to him. Bascom, who ran the Trinidad freight line, hired her in November to straighten out a set of books that 3 men had been lying about in small ways for 2 years, and she found all of it inside 9 days and never once raised her voice about it. By spring he had her on wages, in her own name, written in the book beside the figures. Her own name, beside the figures. She never did get used to that. The house on the Purgatoire was cold and sound and smelled of dust when he took her into it. 1 room finished, 1 room framed, 2 rectangles cut in the wall of the framed room and boarded over from the outside for 2 years. They did not talk about it that winter, and she did not raise it, because there is a difference between a door leaning shut and a door latched, and she had learned to know which was which. On the first warm day in April, he went out to the wagon shed and came back carrying a crate on his shoulder and set it down in the middle of the floor in the room with the boards over the openings. She came and stood in the doorway with her hands wet from washing. It took him most of the day. He pulled the boards. He cut the frames and set them true and bedded the panes in putty with his thumb the way a man does who learned it once, a long time back, from somebody who is gone. She held each pane while he set the stops, and the glass was cold and thin and heavier than it looked, and neither of them said anything at all about the 6 years the straw had been packed around it. He set 4 panes. 2 he left in the crate for the other room, for later. Then he took the last of the boards off the outside, and the afternoon came in. It came all the way across the floor, a long clean shape of it, gold, moving a little where the glass was not perfect, lying across boards that had never once been lit from that side in the whole life of the house. Corinne Vance stood in it. She had been paid for and shipped and signed for and added up in another man's handwriting, and none of it had ever put a single thing in her hands that was hers. She was not rich now. The house was small, and the winter had been long, and there was a debt at the mercantile for nails. But she stood in the light with her arms loose at her sides and understood that no living person held a paper with her name on it. She turned her hand over in the sun and watched it go warm. Behind her, Josiah Teague was gathering the straw up off the floor, unhurried, the way he did everything. It fits. She did not turn around. She did not need to. I said it would.